I'm Mike Bradner, and this is Capital Views, and we have with us today Pat Pitney, who is sort of the go-between between the administration and the financial czars up on the legislative level. So, Pat, tell us about some of the things that maybe aren't getting the top billing on the radar screen that concern you this year.
Well, thanks for having me. I think of course, the fiscal crisis, of course, is still continuing to get attention. The attention on deferred maintenance and the last 3 years of very small capital budgets is just now starting to get some attention, especially with the governor's additional appropriation bill specifically for deferred maintenance.
And one of the key institutions in this, I think, is a university that has most of the square footage in the state, or relatively half of it, I think.
Yeah, the university does have, it's not quite a half, but closer to 40%, and roughly $1 billion of deferred maintenance in their facilities inventory. Many of their facilities were built in the 60s and 70s. And even those that were built in the 1980s are now approaching 40 years old. So
and that burdens different campuses. I would think the University in Fairbanks is probably an age-graded campus that has a lot of old facilities.
Correct. Yeah, the Fairbanks campus, being the oldest campus, certainly has the age facilities, but even with the University of Alaska Anchorage, many of their facilities were built in the 70s and 80s, and they are now feeling the pinch of deferred maintenance as well.
So, I mean, normally we could bond for these facilities, but with the financial crisis, that's unlikely to happen, or unwise to happen. Can you tell us a little bit?
Well, the state's credit rating from 2015, when the price of oil dropped out the bottom, to today, our credit rating has gone from the highest in the nation to the 6th lowest. The inaction on putting a fiscal plan in place has left the bond markets a little bit wary of Alaska. And not weary in that they wouldn't lend us money. It would cost us a whole lot more to borrow it. But the reality is it's not smart to borrow the money until we put ourselves on a stable fiscal platform. So a GEO bond would be a normal way to cover the deferred maintenance funding without a solid platform. A GEO bond does not make sense. And so when we put our bill forward, we put it forward with a wage tax, a very modest 1.5% wage tax. That it was a temporary tax, so it just funds the deferred maintenance package, and it's capped at 2 times the permanent fund size of the permanent fund dividend. So roughly, $2,400 on a wage, on anybody on a wage.
Everybody borrows money. I mean, it's the business model and everything. You borrow money to use the facilities that you're going to use in the generation that people use them. So we do that with our houses, our homes. You borrow money so you can afford the home, and that's what the state should be doing.
It does make sense when you have an income and an expense level that are offsetting. Borrowing and having your mortgage as part of your expense makes perfect sense. Right now, our budget is covered 57% by savings. It's not covered on the margin by savings. 57% of our expenses today are covered by savings. And until we put ourselves on a solid footing, borrowing doesn't make sense.
What about oil revenue? I mean, they cover what now?
Oil revenue covers about 30% of the state budget, and then non-oil revenue, there's this corporate income tax, and mostly sin tax, alcohol tax, tobacco tax, a little bit of user fees in the motor fuels.
And the difference between us and another state is, in another state, the taxes all come out of the citizen's back pocket, and generally.
Generally, taxes covers the lion's share of the budget. The modest tax that we would be putting forward would be roughly 10 to 13% of the total budget would be covered with a broad-based tax.
Because there's different kinds of deferred maintenance. There's our roads, our bridges, things that are not covered in the federal system. And part of the motor fuel tax is to be channeled towards that source.
Right. Last year when we put forward the motor fuels tax, we put a direction to use that funding for highway maintenance, or for the marine side, for the marine highway system and harbors and so forth. And then, of course, airports. Yeah.
We're out of time already, so
Oh, my
thank you a lot
goodness.
for being here. And I'm Mike Bradner, and this is Capital Views.